Hello, welcome to another excelattheoffice.com video. My name's Adrian and I'm going to show you how to revolutionize your presentation of data through awesome charts, the sort that you would see in like the Economist, Financial Times or other professional magazines that look more like infographics than Excel, transforming data in a table like this into a chart like that. So I'm going to show you the stacked bar chart firstly, and how to do it, and then I'm going to show you also this dumbbell chart, which is a fantastic way of demonstrating year-on-year comparisons. So for going from this table here to a chart like that. So let's start with the stacked bar chart. As a default, when you select data like this and insert a chart, some people choose a kind of clustered bar chart, but that kind of isn't really helpful for when you've got varied data volumes like this, where each metric is a different metric. You're not comparing year on year, you're comparing two variables. So that's where a 100% stacked bar comes into its own. The default of which Excel will produce is something a bit lame like that, but we're going to turn it into something like this. And it just looks nicer, the stacked bar. You can get more information on there. And notice how, if I show you my points here on this bar, so I've got the title that reinforces the legend with bespoke formatting. The category titles reside above each bar rather than next to them as the default, so it kind of gives some separation there. We've got the numerical values for extra context, and the use of icons really kind of drives home the visual message too. So let me show you now how to create this stacked bar. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to delete this one and get it out of the way because we're going to start from scratch. So we're going to select our data that we want a chart for, go to Insert and choose under the bar charts area, ignore all the 2D, 3D columns. 3D columns are just awful, never use those, and go to 2D 100% stacked bar. Now I'm just going to tidy this up by maximizing the size, because we're going to make room for our titles and such. I'm going to move the legend to the top. One tip I'd advise, the default text style is not great. I'm just going to maximize my ribbon here. Aptos narrow, it's moved on from Calibri. Both I think are rubbish. I always select my whole chart and go to Arial as a default, and then I'm going to up the size of my title, make it bold. I'm going to do the same, make my legend a bit bigger and bold, move the legend down a bit, and about there looks good. And I'm going to move this down slightly to make room for that title and legend. Next I'm going to put my axis the right way round, because the categories start from nuclear bombs, whereas I want it to start from budget like my table does, the humble table over here that we're going to transform with data. So select your axis, right click and go to Format Axis. That brings up the format bar. Under this chart axis options icon, we're going to check this box called Categories in Reverse Order. Next I'm going to delete what I don't need. So I don't want to show those, so I'll just select them, press delete on the keyboard. I'm going to delete the grid lines, and bye-bye category labels. We don't need those because we're going to add them manually later. And that frees up some space on the left so we can maximize the chart, the bars going there. What I'm going to do as well, I'm going to maximize the width of the bars. So we've already got the options up, but if you haven't, you right click on one of the data points and format data series. And in this gap width, it always defaults to a really skinny 150%. I'm just going to change that to 75%. Normally I go for 50 or lower, but in this scenario I want space between the bars to separate them out with those titles. Just going to move that down a little bit. So what I'm going to do next is add those titles. So what we do is, first of all, make sure your chart's selected, because then anything you then add to it moves with and is part of that chart. So when you move it around, you haven't got to group the items or move them individually. So what I'm going to insert into that chart with it selected is a text box. So I'm going to put a text box here, just bung it above that category, and I'm going to not type in that text box. Ooh. Let's try that again. Insert. You have to be quick with the text box or it kind of disappears on you. So grab it by the outline. Now I'm not going to type in it. What I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to change the font again to Arial. I'm going to make it bigger, but I'm going to go in the formula bar, type equals, and just reference my title I want rather than type it out, because then if you make any changes, those will automatically update. I'm just going to I don't want to do that, so but it just shows you if you need to, then that can update with it. Next, I want to do that for each category. Rather than do it the slow way, here's the quick way. So to copy something, hold down Control as you drag it away. That creates a copy. But it could be, to restrict it from moving all over the place, hold down Shift as well, and that keeps it in a straight line. So I'm going to copy that one. Ooh, try and select it. Copy it again down here. Copy that one again, that one, and lastly do that again. Now each one of those is my label. What I need to do on each is now update the cell reference that it's referring to, so I'm just going to add a number, add an extra one to the row at the end. So instead of B9 it's B10, this one, instead of B9 it's B11, and so on. So it's corresponding with my axes categories. I'll just do the last two as well. And the final one is in cell B14. So those are my axis categories, data labels added. So now what I want to also do is add the labels whereby I show these numbers here at the ends, because that's quite helpful. So all you do for that is right click, add data labels. Right click on that series, add data labels. Then I'm going to select the data labels. The options will come up. I need to go back to the label options, not the sizing. It's fine that I've got the values, but I want it on the inside end, so it places it in that diametrically opposed position. I'm going to whack the size up as well to make it bolder. And I'm going to format this in white text and in bold. I'm going to do the same. Size 14 for this, white text and bold, but on this I'm going to have it inside base, so at the start of the bar, not the end of the bar. Let me get my color scheme right. So to make your chart look a bit more professional and sleek, it's nice when you're comparing two items to have a grey and a color option. So in the we're comparing USA and China, so for USA, let's say it's this kind of light grey, looks kind of cool. Ooh, for the bars, so I just select the series and format that. And for China, let's do it in a nice communist red, as per the Chinese flag. How about that? And it kind of highlights where the Chinese military is ahead and where they are behind quite clearly when you've got those contrasting colours. And while we're here with that, let's sort out the title. So the title is, again, you could, if you wanted to, just type equals and choose that cell, but I don't want to do that. I want to actually type it in because in this way you can format the title. Sorry, I can't type and talk at the same time, typical. So I'm going to choose that because I can then format the USA and then China in my different text color. And you don't have to have the exact precise text color, because all text, even if it's the same color, looks lighter because there's not as much of it. So you can choose a slightly darker version than is in actual your bar here, just to make it more legible and readable. So it's starting to come along. You might be happy with it like this, but if you want to go further, we might do some shapes and icons to convey those categories, as I've done here. So I'll show you a couple. I won't do them all because otherwise this video would be really long, but what I'll show you is how to insert those icons and choose relevant icons. So again, select your chart, so when you insert icons, like those text boxes, it all moves together. We'll go to the Insert tab, and Illustrations. Your icons are under there. Now I'm going to choose, let's say, money. Let's type out money for my spend in dollars. I quite like that one. And you don't have to do it one at a time. I'm going to choose people for my personnel. And let's go for this one on the entry. Right, so grab your icon, place it near the center. You haven't got to get it exact dead center, because under the graphics format, when we give it a white fill, we can also align it. Right, you don't need these exactly in the middle, these icons, because I'll show you in a moment how to align them exactly centrally, but I'm just going to get them roughly in the right place and visible. For now, I'm going to again format that one as white. So I'm going to hold Shift and or Control, sorry, and select multiple items. Then under graphics format, what you can do is align them to the center, so down, left, right, center, rather than top, bottom, middle, that one's called. So you see that little dividing line there. Align that center. I had them pretty close, they barely moved. And you can add other icons that you like for your data, as I've done with this chart here. So from this we can see in the US versus China quite clearly the US spends more on its military, but it's got half the number of people that China has in its military. They're pretty even on tanks. Aircraft, the US is dominating quite clearly. The Navy fleet, China's got the upper hand on that one. And nuclear bombs, there's just a ridiculous amount of nuclear bombs that can destroy the world several times over if anyone, which is always nice to know. On that literal bombshell, let's now go to how to create the dumbbell chart. I'm going to just pause it there and take a breather, but we'll get to it in a moment. Right, the dumbbell chart is a pretty handy one. Again, converting a simple table of data into something far more appealing and original. None of your colleagues or peers will be producing anything like this, anything so sleek. So you'll get serious kudos when you present something really appealing on your charts. And why use this one? Because, well, it's really great for when your data's connected. So everything here is all to do with dollars, because we're looking at sales, and particularly if you want to accentuate the change in something. So we see a big change here but a smaller change here. And also the direction of that change, whether it's last year in this light green or this year in the dark green. It's ideal for when you're comparing two time periods. Obviously it's not going to work for multiple more than two, but at least it's not another bland bar chart. So normally people will present this sort of data like this, which shows the volumes by year 1 and year 2, in this case by country, and it just looks far more bland than something like this. So let's start to create this scatter plot. I'm going to delete it, and also I'm going to delete the things that make it work, because I'm going to go through from scratch with you how to do it exactly. So the first thing is to prepare your data. So I'm going to just share with you these steps if you want to run ahead like the other one. So again, this will take you maybe 10 minutes to create a chart once you've got the hang of it, but it will be 10 minutes well spent. That refinement of all your hard work, gathering all the data. You spent hours on it, why not spend 10 minutes making it look fantastic so people actually read the darn stuff. So with scatter, we're using a scatter plot. It's colloquial, we call it a dumbbell or connected dot plot, but actually what Excel calls it, the thing we're going to use is a scatter plot. The scatter plot needs numbers as the y-axis, so we're going to add these here. So y-axis, we're just going to put 1 here, and a little shortcut. You can select that one, hold down Control and drag it down, and it will fill in the rest in a logical order. What I'm going to do is select an empty area, go to the Insert and insert our chart template, a blank canvas if you like. And it comes from the scatter or bubble chart area, and the one I'm going to choose is simple scatter. Now, as you'll notice, nothing is there, but there will be very soon. So first of all, I'll add my series to this scatter plot by right-clicking on it and choosing Select Data. What we're going to do is add the legend entry series. Series name is 2023. My values are the sales values for 2023. But my Y values aren't these labels anymore, they are these axis labels. So I'm going to click there, and there we go. It's placed them in a kind of hierarchical order up up that Y-axis. If you want to know a handy tip to remember what's the Y and what's the X-axis, the Y-axis, if you try to write it on paper, this is how I always remember it. If you try and write Y here, your tail will be getting in the way of your axis line. So the y-axis is where the tail interferes with the line. Little memory tip there. And I'm going to add another series, my 2024 series name. My values are here, and my, again, y-axis values are here. Click OK. Right, so that's starting to come into shape. We can see the dots next to one another. So next of all, we are going to create the data that populates the connecting lines, and the populating the connecting lines will be the difference. So I'm just going to move this down here. So let's now add the difference to my chart data for the before and after. I'm going to type difference here. So I'm going to do equals after minus before. So that will give me my difference values. And a little tip, if you double click in that tiny little box on the bottom of the right of the cell, that will just populate it downwards for you. So next I'm going to add my connecting lines. I'm not going to add any series. All I'm going to do is select my after series, which we can tell because it's highlighted here when we select a series. I'm gonna add a chart element, and I'm gonna have error bars. And when I click this button here, I'm going to go more options, and that brings up the error bar formatting. So first of all, I'm going to delete the vertical error bars. We don't want those, just keep the horizontal ones. And when I select them, all we want is the minus error bars. We don't want the plus error bars. We don't want a cap on the end in terms of the style, and in terms of the error amount, what we're going to do is create a custom amount, specify our values, and the values in the negative error, because that's the one we've chosen, are those difference values that we've entered already there. So now we've got a line that connects the two dots, so that's a pretty good progress there. So next we're going to plot some data points at 0 so that we can add labels to it to be able to categorize our data with the countries rather than numbers. So those zeros will form our labels, so let's call them label. All we do here is add in 0, double click to populate it down. Now I'm going to add that to my chart by selecting the data, add an extra data series. The label is that title label. My values, x-axis values are those, and like the others, my y-axis is these numerical values. Click OK. Now I've got those data points on here. Now I'm going to make room for my axis labels, category labels even, just by bringing this across, bringing this chart across here. So the next step in getting these values is if I select those data points and right click and add data labels, it adds them to the side, but I'm going to select those data labels, go to my label options and place them to the left, and instead of just a number, I don't want the value, I want this not the series name, value from cells, sorry. And the cells I want to look at are this range of cells here. Click OK. Now I've got my countries in order. Now these numerical values just seem in the way now, these axis labels that were there. So I'm going to select them, delete that. So I've just got my countries, and I'm going to format these to hide them because I don't want them shown on my chart. So if I go to the Format tab up here, I'm going to fill them with nothing. I'm going to make sure they're outlined with no outline, and that disappears them. So all I'm left with is these labels alongside my before, after, and change picture. So that's the technical aspects of the plot, the scatter plot, all in place. So that's the tricky bit. All that's left to do now is make it look nice. So I'm going to put it up here in this bigger space, make the format area bigger. Actually, I don't want United Kingdom, I want UK, because that takes up less space here. You see it's changed that. I'm going to bring my plot over then to really exaggerate the width of it. As I showed you before, I'm going to choose Arial. I'm going to increase the text of everything. Here's a little tip. Sometimes when you increase the text, it starts encroaching. So Arial narrow is a kind of cheating way of getting bigger text in a smaller space. I'm going to make my axis labels bold. I'm going to make those country titles bigger and bold. I'm going to also add a chart title to my chart. If I bring this down, I'll make room for the title, and this again I'm going to do sales by country. So it's good to label your title what exactly it's doing. 2023 versus 2024. I'm going to use that chart title as a kind of reinforcing color scheme because I'm not going to have the legend this time, but I'm going to try and select the whole title. There we go. Increase the size so it's proper oversized. Make the text black. And for 2023, I'm going to go for, let's go for a light grey and consistent with my table. And 2024, I'm going to go for dark green because it's sales and it's money. Actually, maybe a slightly darker grey for the text because that's not very legible. That's better. So let's make my data points that green and grey colour. So I've selected this series. Currently it's orange as per Excel default. Now in my formatting options, first of all, let's go to the marker section. I don't want a border, but I do want to fill it in that green colour. And also under the marker options, I want to make that marker far bigger so it really accentuates my data. Might even go up to size 15 for the round 15. So that's that one. I'm going to select the other marker too. I'm going to choose built-in because that allows me to adjust the size of it. So I'm going to go for 15 as well. I'm going to go for a light grey colour fill and no border. So that's coming along. And for this line, just select the line to bring up the formatting of that. Again, I want to exaggerate the width of it to show that connection. I'm going to cover that in the light grey too, to show how it's changed over time and that kind of bridging the difference between last year and this year. Also, these lines, these grid lines could be a bit lighter. They don't need to be so dark, so make those real pale grey, those two the same pale grey, just to kind of accentuate the how they align to different countries. Yeah, so that's the dumbbell chart. Like the one before, that's now ready that you can do a targeted screenshot. In Windows that's snip and sketch. For Mac that's Command Alt and 4, but on the stacked bar as well, for added credibility, I've also given another text box to give the source of it. So just inserted a text box and typed out the source. So for this chart I got it from armedforces.eu. So that's an overview of how to make amazing and beautiful stacked bar charts, transforming your boring table of data into something far more presentable, but also doing something original with this dumbbell chart with your kind of error bars showing the difference, whether it's a increase like these countries are, like Spain, France, Germany, we can show an increase, and Italy, USA has shown a decrease in this dummy sales data. So I hope you found that helpful. It's a bit of a longer video, but I mean, once you've learned these skills, you'll transform your presentation just to make Excel stuff look nicer. That's my goal, because everything by default just seems to be pretty bland and lame. And how about that for a completely different way of presenting your data? I hope you found this helpful. Of course, if you can't be bothered with all this and just want me to make your data look presentable, by all means you can commission me, get in touch at my website. But otherwise, let me know how you found this in the comments below, and I'll be back soon with another video.